Living paycheck to paycheck often feels like something you're not supposed to admit, like it's a personal failure, like everyone else figured something out that you missed. But the truth is, living paycheck to paycheck is far more common than most people realize, especially in the United States. For a moment, think about your own situation. You work, you show up, you earn money regularly. And yet, by the time the next paycheck is due, the balance feels uncomfortably low again. It's not because you spent wildly, not because you were careless. It's just happened quietly. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. More importantly, you're not broken. In a moment, I'll explain why this pattern shows up even for people who are careful, responsible, and doing what they were told was the right thing. Start with a normal paycheck. It hits your account, and there's a brief sense of relief. Not excitement, just relief. Then the money starts leaving. Rent or a mortgage payment, car payment, insurance, utilities, groceries that somehow cost more than they did last month, credit card minimums that don't feel optional anymore. Before you've had time to make a plan, most of your income is already committed. Then something small happens. Medical copay, a prescription refill, a car issue, a school expense, a few $100s that wipes out whatever margin you thought you had. Now you're not thinking about progress. You're thinking about getting through the rest of the month. This cycle isn't rare. It's incredibly common. And it's not because people forgot how to manage money. It's because the structure around money has changed in ways that aren't always obvious. In a moment, I'll explain why being careful isn't always enough anymore. For decades, full-time work was associated with stability. It didn't make people wealthy, but it usually created some breathing room. Today, that breathing room has shrunk. Housing takes a much larger share of income. Transportation costs are higher. Insurance premiums rise quietly every year. Healthcare expenses appear without warning. And wages haven't kept pace with all of that. When most of your income is locked into fixed costs, flexibility disappears. Without flexibility, even small problems feel overwhelming. This is why so many people feel like they're constantly on edge, not in crisis, but never relaxed. Always watching the balance, always hoping nothing unexpected happens. Budgeting can help you see this clearly, but it can't fix the underlying issue when there's no margin to work with. You can be disciplined and still feel stuck. Now let's talk about credit cards, because they play a central role in this experience. Credit cards often start out as a tool. They help smooth gaps. They help handle emergencies. They help you keep moving when costs rise faster than income. At first, they feel helpful, responsible even. But over time, they quietly add pressure. Most credit cards today carry interest rates well above 20%. That interest isn't loud, doesn't show up as a bill you consciously approve, just operates in the background. Here's a simple example. If you carry a $2,000 balance at a 25% interest rate, you're paying around $500 a year just to maintain that balance. That money doesn't reduce what you owe. It doesn't move you forward. It simply keeps you where you are. You can pay every minimum payment on time and still feel like nothing is changing. That's not a motivation problem. That's how interest works. This is where many people start to feel discouraged because they're doing what they were told was responsible, but the results don't match the effort. Then credit scores enter the picture, which makes everything feel even more personal. Your credit score isn't measuring effort. It's measuring risk. One of the largest factors in that calculation is payment history, which makes up roughly 1/3 of your score. Paying on time matters because late payments signal instability. Even a single late payment can hurt more than people expect. But here's the part that confuses a lot of people. Payment history mostly protects you from damage. It doesn't automatically improve your score if other risk signals remain high. Another major factor is credit utilization, which is simply how much of your available credit you're using. If you have a $5,000 credit limit and you're using $4,000, that's high utilization. Even with perfect payments, that level of usage can keep your score from improving. This is why people feel like they're doing everything right and still not seeing progress. In a few minutes, I'll explain why small shifts here can matter more than months of effort. Now think about what people are told to do when money feels tight. Work more. Pick up extra hours. Take overtime if it's available. And sometimes that helps, briefly. But often, it doesn't change the underlying feeling. Why? Because fixed costs don't scale down. And small income increases are often absorbed by taxes, delayed expenses, or things you've been forced to postpone. So you work more, feel more tired, and still feel broke. This is where people start making choices that feel logical under pressure. They lean more on credit to avoid falling behind. They delay looking closely at their finances because it feels overwhelming. They cut small expenses aggressively while ignoring the bigger forces driving the stress. None of this means you're bad with money. These are normal human responses to pressure. But this is also where people accidentally make things worse. For example, many people focus entirely on paying bills on time and assume that's enough. Paying on time is important, but it doesn't reduce balances or interest. Others chase fast money ideas because they're desperate for relief, only to end up disappointed or burned. Later, I'll explain what actually helps instead, without hype or shortcuts. Before that, there's an important shift to make. Living paycheck to paycheck isn't always a spending problem. It's often a margin problem. Margin doesn't mean wealth. It means breathing room. Enough space that one unexpected expense doesn't derail everything. Once you see that, the goal changes. It's no longer about trying harder. It's about creating margins slowly and deliberately. Let's return to credit scores for a moment, because this is where small changes can make a real difference. Payment history matters because it shows consistency. Late payments hurt because they signal risk. That's why one missed payment can cause a noticeable drop. Utilization matters because it shows dependency. Lower balances signal less risk, even if income hasn't changed. Here's another simple scenario. If you're using $4,000 of a $5,000 limit, your utilization is 80%. If you reduce that balance to $3,000, your utilization drops to 60%. That single change can have more impact on your score than months of perfect payments alone. This is why progress often feels invisible until something finally shifts. Interest slows everything down, which makes patience harder. This combination is why so many Americans live paycheck to paycheck while doing what they were told was right. They're surviving, but they're not building margin. Now, let's talk about income in a realistic way. Being careful only goes so far when costs keep rising. At some point, income flexibility matters more than willpower. That doesn't mean chasing risky schemes or working non-stop. It means choosing slow, predictable ways to bring in extra money without burning out. This is where boring income wins. Gig work works because it's flexible and immediate. Freelancing works because skills compound over time. Simple service-based work works because demand stays consistent. These options aren't exciting, but they're controllable. Fast money usually backfires because it depends on hype, timing, or luck. Slow money works because it's steady and predictable. You don't need multiple income streams. You need one realistic option that fits your life. Now let's make this practical. Today, the goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Look at where your money is already committed. Identify fixed costs. Notice which debt carries the highest interest. Avoid adding new balances if you can. That alone reduces mental pressure. This week, focus on protection. Automate minimum payments so nothing slips. Look for small opportunities to reduce utilization, even slightly. Progress doesn't need to be dramatic to matter. This month, focus on margin. One realistic income move, one boring, predictable step that creates breathing room. That breathing room is what makes everything else easier. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it doesn't mean you failed. It means modern financial life is tight, and no one explained it clearly. Financial repair is slow. It doesn't feel exciting, but it is possible. And once you understand what's really happening, you stop fighting yourself and start working with reality instead. There's more clarity ahead. We'll take it one piece at a time.